Today I'm going to paint a cute little bunny, which can be a nice idea for a greeting card. Hi friends, I'm Olga Koelsch, watercolor artist, teacher and a book author. Welcome to my studio. Let's make our drawing. Let's divide our paper in about 3 parts and maybe shift it a little bit down. We want our bunny has very long ears, right? So one, another one. Try to draw it a little bit symmetrical and think about the shape of a pear. A little bit more narrow on the top, bigger cheeks on the bottom. So this is kind of pear. This will be our bunny face. Let's find the middle and set up a nose. Eyes are the most important part, and for the bunny, let's place them about 1/3 of the head. Don't afraid to go a little bit overboard and make them bigger, because we are painting a cute illustration, so we have a lot of freedom. A little bit round on the outside parts, and what's important, draw little shapes that will be the reflections of the sunlight. The nose part, the mouth part, pretty simple. Now ears, no need to paint them symmetrical. What's important that you just find symmetrical parts on the head where they will start, and then one ear, and then another one. You can draw the outside part on one ear and the outside for another ear. I would really like to add some flowers on the top of our bunny head. Therefore, I will just imagine about here will be some flower wreath on the top. Let's lighten up pencil marks and begin to paint. For painting, I will use different shades of brown from what I have. I have burnt sienna, I have sepia, and I will be mixing them in different proportions, and I will start pretty light. I'm not touching the area where I'm going to paint the wreath, but I will start to arrange the fur on the head with small little brush strokes. I always think how what's the direction of the hairs, what's the shape of the head. So I'm trying to organize my brush strokes according to this. For example, this is one direction to the nose, but on the cheeks the direction changes, so it will be about like this. Firstly, we start very light. We always can make it dark. Let's set up initial idea of our bunny. I would like to add a touch of pink. The more I close to the nose section, the more pinky paints I can use, like this. I always try to leave a little bit of white area around, a little bit of pink touch on the cheeks. Also, I keep a little bit of white area around the mouth section. Once we will add eyes, it will look a little bit different, I promise. Now let's add small little details to the chin and around the mouth. Try to vary the pressure on your brush. Use different sides of your brush. Looks very funny right at the moment. To make it easier to follow, let's paint eyes. I will make them just black, and then I paint eyes area. I remember about this glossy point, which I'm not touching. I carefully paint around, and I paint with brush strokes around the nose, because This will imitate some hairs growing into direction of the eye. I leave pretty large white spot because I can make it smaller anytime, and I paint over it. To have more control on your brush, hold your brush very close to the hair part, to the hairy part. I want to wash my brush. I dry it with a paper towel, and I will go around a little bit and lift. That will add an extra volume to the eye. Now same principle for the other eye. First brush strokes around the nose area, outline the light part, then just cover everything with black, thinking about nice round shape, and try to lift up a little bit of blacks. Let eyes to dry, and then let's paint ears. Inside of the ears, a little bit more on the pink side, but again, some brush strokes, very diluted. Area of the future wreath, like this. So now I hold my brush in about a middle. That allows me to create more spontaneous brush strokes. I use sepia. I want to start with small brush strokes. I move my brush pretty fast, and I remember to keep some spots, some white areas in between. Same on the other side. Always try to move your brush according to the shape. So if ear goes a little bit C shape, then you arrange your brush strokes also according to this C shape. Sometimes my brush makes drier brush strokes, which is very nice for this little guy, like this. Now let's add some neck, very light brown mix. I move my brush flat to the paper, and remember that the head will create some shadow on the neck. Therefore, we can paint this part a little bit darker. We need to separate head from the body, and we do it with darker brush strokes, like this. Go around and soften with a wet brush. I bring brush strokes down, shadow underneath the head, like this. So now it's time for paint details. Firstly, let's add a nose with sepia. So I just paint this V shape of the nose, then mouth section, and pretty delicate brush strokes for the mouth. Then I wash my brush. I dry it with a paper towel, and with damp brush I slightly go underneath this mouth shape and drag down the paints down to the chin section. That will help to create some shadows and also soften a little bit around, like this. That's looking more and more natural. And I will shape the eyes section. I will paint a little bit smaller brush strokes around the eye. We need to place the eye, so we need to add this shadow underneath. Same on the other side. So I'm leaving a small little white area underneath the eye, And then I try to bring my shadow next to the inner angle of the eye. Then I just soften everything and add a couple of grayish brush strokes around. The pink nose looks like. I want to add a couple of bit darker brush strokes around. Again, here we will have flowers, the wreath, and the wreath will create some shadows like here. So we can add a bit of darker brush strokes around the head underneath our imaginary wreath for now. Now let's work a little bit on the cheeks. Couple of gray brush strokes, some brush strokes, darker brush strokes, especially in this area where the outside part makes a shadow on the inside part. And I will add a couple of very dark sepia brush strokes for the outside part. Now eyelashes. Imagine where they will start to grow. 1, 2, something like this. Now let's dilute slightly the mix. Add some dots to the mouth section. And with relatively diluted mix of both burnt sienna and black, let's add mustache. I move my brush pretty quick, therefore it leaves here and there, it leaves some white spots on the paper. That's completely fine. We can add a little bit of hairs around the nose. Same brave brush strokes. Maybe add some darkness. Dab my brush onto paper towel. With dry brush I would like to create a little bit more feathers of the hairs, so to say backwards. Dark brush strokes from bottom to top. That will make the head a little bit more fluffier. I still want to add more darkness to the body part. Now let's quickly paint some wreath. I suggest we will stay close to our palette. Firstly, with the purple, we can add small little flowers like this, just brush strokes. We did it already in many videos. Just brush strokes, we attach them, all brush strokes, we bring them to the middle of the flower. I can vary a little bit more on the blue side, a little bit more on the purple side. Couple of these type of flowers. Now let's add some warm touch. For example, yellow ochre in the middle of the flowers. It will immediately add the spring feeling. Small brush strokes. Some greenery. I have mix of viridian with burnt sienna, which so now with just brush strokes attaching one to another, I try to imitate some green twigs. A little bit more pressure on at some points, a little bit less pressure. Sometimes I move my brush. I use just the tip of the brush. Basically what I do is I'm organizing brush strokes, imitating the greenery, the green part. Some strokes can be a little bit bigger or a little bit thinner. Just think about variety, how you can create this variety. Let's have a look. We can add, definitely can add a little bit more. You can go with damp brush, soften some flower points, or add or fill in the gaps with brush strokes. for example, purple brush strokes, like this. Now we need to add a little bit of our main body color, so to say. So with the tip of the brush, I just go around, I just paint inside these white gaps. Let's add some shadows in the ear section and divide outside part of the ear from the inside part of the ear. A little bit more shadows on this area between eyes and the mouth section. Let's separate them a little bit more. Let's add a bit more weight to our bunny. I think it's too small and tiny. I want it to be a little bit bigger. I just add a couple of brush strokes. I dilute it with my brush. And our bunny is ready. Thank you so much for painting with me. I hope you had fun and enjoyed the process. Please let me know in comments what would you like to paint next, and see you soon. Bye bye.